Hello and welcome everyone to the FIWARE Green Economy Day. It's now 2, so let's just kick off. My name is Charlotte Cotterman. I am the Community Manager at the FIWARE Foundation, and on behalf of the Foundation, I would like to thank you all for joining us today for this exciting event. Before I jump into the introduction, I would just very briefly like to go over some housekeeping with you all. We ask all attendees to mute themselves and to turn off their cameras throughout the presentations just to avoid any connectivity issues. Secondly, this is a live event, as you may have noticed, and it will be recorded. So by attending this event, you agree to the recording, and the recording will be made available on the FIWARE YouTube channel so that you'll be able to revisit all of this content whenever you like. And then lastly, this event will include 2 Q&A sessions. So we please ask you all to drop any questions that you have throughout the event into the chat, and if possible, also adding who the question is addressed to, and we will then do our best to incorporate them into the 2 Q&A sessions. So for those who are not familiar with us yet, FIWARE Foundation is a non-profit organization that drives the definition and encourages the adoption of open standards implemented using open source technologies and reference architectures to ease the development of smart digital solutions across multiple domains, including the one we will be discussing today. Game-changing open source approaches and solutions have really become vital to the fight against climate change, and through outstanding keynotes and specialist speeches from experts in the field, as well as real-life use cases coming from across the world, this event will highlight how open source technology is contributing to the ability and speed to address urgent challenges and the needs of society and the world as a whole. This event, the FIWARE Green Economy Day, is a part of a series of virtual events that will take place throughout the second half of 2020 that will cover a diverse domains like health and the response to COVID-19, mobility, tourism. The FIWARE Tourism Day will actually take place next Thursday, in case any of you are interested. Water, e-government, and many more. But today we will be taking a closer look at how climate action and sustainability can be driven cross industry by an unprecedented open source approach. So once again, a warm welcome to today's FIWARE Green Economy Day. Now please join me in welcoming our stellar lineup, including Mike Barlow, who will be our moderator. Mike is a journalist and author at Wiley. Professor Carlo Ratti from MIT Sensible City Lab, Amanda Brooke from Open UK, Marc Desplantes from Orange, Dr. Monique Calisti from Digital for Planet, Antonio Jara from HOPU, Vincent Demortier from Faubourg Numérique, Arjen Hoff from Civity, and also FIWARE Foundation's very own Ulrich Ahle, Juan Joyero, and Christina Brandstetter. Now, in addition, I also would like to take this opportunity to give a big thank you to our premium media partner, Business Reporter, as well as our media partners, Compass List, EU Observer, Future Distributed, and Zoom Global Cities for their incredible support in disseminating this event. Without further ado, I would now like to introduce you all to the person who will be guiding you through today's virtual event, namely Mike Barlow. Mike is a prolific author and technology journalist. He has written hundreds of articles and reports on exciting topics such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks, predictive maintenance, and advanced data analytics. He is the author of Learning to Love Data Science and the co-author of Smart Cities, Smart Future, Showcasing Tomorrow. So we hope that you enjoy your time with us today. And without further ado, I will now gladly hand over the mic to Mike. Mike, the stage is yours.
Hi, thank you so much. And thank you all so much for attending this really important event. You know, it's strange because so much is on our shoulders here. If we don't save the earth, no one will. This is up to us, the people on this conference, the people that you see on the screen right now. There's no one we can shift the responsibility to, which is, you know, frightening, to be totally honest with you. I have that they're not entirely happy that that the responsibility for saving the planet has fallen to our generation. So, so that's the good news. Or the bad news. Obviously, I'm a smart city person, and so I don't run away from responsibility. I'm not a person who tries to blame people, other people. I try to figure out how much responsibility I can take. And as someone who lives in a city, I know that cities are responsible for the vast majority of the world's energy consumption. So cities consume more than 60%, I'm sorry, more than 78% of the world's energy, and we generate 60% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So from our perspective, that's actually really good news. Now, why do I see those harsh facts in a positive light? Again, it's a question of responsibility. It means that we know exactly where the problems are. We know where the greenhouse gases are coming from. And so, since we know where they're able to do a fairly decent job of stopping them. So let's work together in our cities. This is my personal plea here before turning the program back over. Let's keep fighting for more sidewalks and bicycle paths. Let's fight for stricter enforcement of traffic laws and genuinely safer streets that are fully accessible to all people of all ages and all abilities, all ethnicities, all backgrounds. You know, we're all in this together. Our cities need more parks and playgrounds. Let's not abandon our belief in public transit. Together, we can figure out how to make public transit safe, attractive, and affordable. I just want to also mention that education is essential. There are plenty of cities that do a fantastic job of educating their children, and they teach them not only the basics of education, but they also teach them about water conservation, renewable energy, and the circular economy. So we love cities and we love Mother Earth. We do not see them as separate phenomena. Their destinies are joined. They're two sides of the same coin. We deeply believe that cities must take leading roles in developing political strategies and practical strategies for mitigating climate change that are meaningful, effective, and fair. And by the way, cities should also be leaders in the open source movement. With that, now that I'm done with that rant, and thank you for listening, I appreciate it. Let's have our first have our first speaker get ready. Professor Carlo Ratti, director of the MIT Sensible City Lab and founding partner of Carlo Ratti Associati. Carlo is going to talk to us about Carlo. Can you
I'm here.
Keynote? And thank you.
Yes. Well, I just put together a few slides where I want to share some of what we've been doing in really this space. So first of all, we all talk about smart cities, but what is the definition of a smart city? Well, the interesting thing today is that we're looking at this convergence between the digital and the physical world. One way to say it is, the internet is becoming Internet of Things and is entering the space of the city, entering our buildings, our squares, all of the urban fabric, and that changes really the way cities understand cities, and then use this knowledge in order to transform cities, to design them better. I just want to share 3 examples with you. The first one is about data. Well, if you look at data, what you see here is a city that becomes like a living organism thanks to all this kind of real-time data. There's actually a visualization of Lisbon mapped using billions of data points collected from the taxi network. This was done by Pedro Cruz, who was in our lab at MIT. And then if you analyze this data, you can do interesting things. So that's the same data about taxis. It's in New York, not in Lisbon. Every dot is a taxi pickup or drop-off. You see the yellow dot and the blue dot. What you see here is JFK Airport. If you zoom out, here you see JFK was down here. And here you see Manhattan and all of the boroughs. And well, when you got all this data, then you can ask interesting questions. For instance, one of the questions we ask ourselves is, this was a few years ago before Uber launched Uber Pool. That was before. So one of the questions we ask, if you take those 2 points in Manhattan, you got hundreds of thousands of trips connecting them in the course of the year. So how many of those trips could actually be shared? With little inconvenience for people. So take everybody to destination when they need to be there. What is, give or take a small delay, 1, 2, or 3 minutes? If that is your target, then what is the minimum number of vehicles you need? And again, you get all this data about the city that we didn't have just a few years ago. We can analyze it, and that's, if anybody's interested, that's a mathematical paper that looks at this. We use the new methodology we call shareability networks. You see them here. You see on the image, you see this kind of networks that densify from the left to the right if you tolerate a slightly longer delay. But oops. but the interesting thing that that we found was really that in New York you could take everybody to destination when they need to be there, give or take 1, 2, or 3 minutes, but with 40% less vehicles than what we have today. And actually, an interesting result of this is that, you know, when this was published in a scientific journal in the Proceedings of the National Academies of Science, then it started a nice conversation, and as a result of the discussion, we started a collaboration between MIT and Uber. And as you probably know now, Uber Pool does exactly this, allows many people going more or less in the same direction to share a ride. And if you do it correctly, you know, every ride that's shared means one less car on the road, which is less congestion, less energy consumption, and less pollution. In a very simple example of how we can actually look at this kind of convergence of digital and physical, leverage it in order to collect more data from our cities and then analyze the data to, you know, kind of better understand what is going on and perhaps design new services in cities. That's a follow-up from, I think, more recent follow-up from a couple of years ago, where we looked at, that was an article in Nature, where we actually looked at another question using similar data in New York, and you see it here. So what you see here is again, all mobility data in New York collected in real time. And in this case, we ask ourselves a different question. You see it there, is what is the minimum fleet? It's not about sharing a ride like we saw before, but what is the minimum fleet to satisfy the mobility demand of New York? And dispatching is happening today, especially, you know, dispatching is going to be crucial in the future with self-driving cars. So you see how dispatching is happening today. It's quite inefficient. You see the cars are empty 50% of the time. And then you see that just by changing the algorithms, you can reprogram, you know, dispatching in a way that you can satisfy all trips. No sharing, nothing else. Everything is the same. We just improve the efficiency of the system mathematically. And, you know, and again, you can cut a significant number of vehicles on the road. So you know, two very simple examples of how we can, again, we can look at data, analyze data, and data can help us to better understand the city and also to rethinking and design it better. I want to share a couple of other things that come actually from our design office, because I thought it would be important also to see how we, you know, can change city in a physical way through the design of buildings and so on. I want to share two projects. One is more speculative, is about the materials. That was a project we presented at Milan Design Week last year. Milan Design Week is one of the big, large events in the world of design, where, you know, hundreds of thousands of designers from all over the world meet in Milan in April every year. This was 2019. And in this case, we were asked to actually do a project dealing with the circular economy. How nature does things is much smarter than any designer, in the fact, you know, that nature really collects all the energy and the materials locally, produces something incredible, an incredible design. Think about the tree, and then, you know, everything goes back, it gets back to in the circle. Everybody in a circular way goes back, in the case, to the soil, and is reused. And here we wanted to try to create some kind of simplified architecture. You see these kind of arches by actually doing something similar. Could we actually grow something out of soil very quickly, and then following design week, bring that back to soil, compost it, and, you know, and again, bring it back to the place. The place you see here is a place that few people know in Milan. Is in the real center of Milan. It's a beautiful little garden. It's called Orto Botanico, the botanical garden. It was built in the 18th century. And, you know, a garden actually is a place by definition of circularity. So in this case, we built the largest ever structure made of mycelium. Mycelium is the root of mushrooms, and, you know, we grew it in a few weeks, and then we installed it there. So it became this kind of simplified architecture, this kind of three-dimensional structure in the middle of the botanical garden. You see different installations, and then following the Milan Design Week, all of this again went back to soil. So in a matter of a couple of months, we went from soil, growing in quotes, these kind of structures, and going back to soil. The only thing which is not mycelium are these kind of connections. You know, architecture starts when two bricks are connected to each other. In this case, you know, we wanted to connect the arches. So that was actually the result of, well, also that was all done with recycled natural materials that also were composted together with a mushroom at the end of the project. And it actually involved a Japanese bondage master helping do all of that. With another example, so the second point was about materials, how we can work with new materials in a way to really do something which is much more similar to what nature does. The final thing I want to share with you, and again, I need to just get it here, is really bring nature itself inside the city. And again, we are doing quite a few projects about this. This is a project, it's a skyscraper under construction in Singapore. And in this skyscraper, you know, there's offices at the top, there's service apartments in the lower part, but in the middle and throughout the building, there's this kind of tropical forest that overlooks the city. Again, I see one of the challenges of today's architecture, kind of starting to think in terms of co-evolution between the natural and the artificial world. And you see here some of the views. This is kind of this suspended square in the middle of the building with this kind of lush vegetations that allows for a public space for people to meet and you know, for different communities to encounter, like a public space suspended over the city. But also it has a lot of interest from a bioclimatic architecture point of view. Evapotranspiration from trees is reducing extreme heat. It is making more pleasant to live even without air conditioning. Here you see some of the images of the project. Again, sorry, I'm jumping from one to the other because of this problem with slide. Now, I think I will stop here also because we looked at we lost a couple of minutes at the beginning. But again, I wanted to share very briefly again these kind of 3 points. First one related about data, how data can help us better understand the city and hence transform it. The second one related to materials, how we can start thinking about much more sustainable materials is very exciting. All what's happening today in the space. And the third one, really starting to think about co-evolution between the natural and the artificial, so that we can hybridize our cities in a way that wasn't possible just a few years ago. So I will stop here. I should turn on the camera now and stop the sharing. And I thank all of you.
Yes, thank you. That was really terrific, and I'm just so happy that you mentioned this idea of the connection between self-driving cars and decarbonization. That is going to be, the more automation we can get into our automobiles, actually the combination of self-driving, electric vehicles, 5G. This is all going to be good because it's going to enable us to decarbonize so much more quickly. I'm also really happy that you mentioned this idea of the coevolution between the natural world and the built environment, because as you know, the built environment consumes such a huge amount of energy, and that's a big problem. And then thank you for sharing those lovely images of the gardens. Those are just, I think that really has got us off to a great start. So thank you so much, Professor Ratti. And now, Amanda Brock is up. Amanda is the chair of the United Nations Technology Innovation Labs, Open Source, and IP Advisory Group, and CEO of Open UK. Amanda, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Help if I'm unmuted. Thank you very much for that intro and for having me along today to talk to you. So, as was mentioned, I'm CEO of Open UK, and I'm here today to talk to you about opening the door to a greener future using open source. Let me just make sure this is going to work. There we go. So Open UK is an industry body and advocacy group We effectively rose like a phoenix from the ashes in January with a new board covering open source software, hardware and data, a board of 12 who set our go forward vision, mission and purpose, with a vision being to develop and sustain UK leadership in open technology. Open technology is a term that you may or may not have heard before. If you haven't heard it, take note, because it's very much going to be the future. And we've defined open technology as open source software, open hardware, and open data. Now, we are building that leadership using 3 pillars. Those 3 pillars have very much evolved over the last 6 months. The first of those is community, the second is legal and policy, and the third is learning. So looking firstly and briefly at the community side, we were partially prompted with the vision, mission and purpose in Open UK by Brexit, but I think the pandemic has probably driven this home to everybody, that whilst we live in a global economy, we also need to look local. And for many of us in the UK, we've been long-term contributors and experts around the world of open, but we don't know our neighbours. We know other people all over the globe who work on projects with us, but we don't know somebody around the corner. I mean, I genuinely had the experience during the pandemic of meeting a lawyer who I've worked with on an open data project for Open UK. She lives 150 yards from my home, but I had no idea. We now walk together. But this is the joy of community and building a geographically orientated community in the UK, which is cohesive and visible, a loud and visible community across the UK, uniting people so that we can have that voice heard both in business and by government. We do this through a variety of different means, including things like blogs and podcasts, but also events. Events are obviously more restricted for us, like everybody else. We've all moved digital. We have moved our Open UK Week, the first time it's being held, from June to October, and that will be a series of digital events. Highlight is probably our awards on the 20th of October. We've had 84 nominations, which for a first year of an awards, I think is fantastic. And we will have a shortlist being issued next week on the 31st of July. The second area I mentioned, legal and policy. Now for us, that was one of the easiest areas to spin out quickly because we have a number of well-known experts in the UK in those areas across open. So we were very privileged to be able to gain credibility quickly, and by February we were asked to go and speak with UK Trade and Industry, the body within the UK who are negotiating the post-Brexit trade agreements. We were asked to go and speak to them to advise and support them on the meanings and the usage of source code in those treaties. We realised also very quickly that having so many of these experts meant we had many senior people, and we were lacking a slipstream behind of people who will follow in that leadership pattern over the years. So we focused and we created a Future Leaders Group. Future Leaders Group, we're going to have a few training sessions, and that has morphed during lockdown and post-lockdown through the pandemic into weekly training sessions across open. If anyone's interested in seeing or hearing more, you can join those sessions at noon BST. Although they're designed for the future leaders, they're open to anybody with an interest in open, and you will find them on openuk.uk/events. Futures Leaders Group, they are also focused on doing a review of government terms, government procurement terms and processes, and their suitability for open, whether it's software, hardware, or data. Now, those that review is being done through a mentored process with the Legal and Policy Group. But it's great to see 16 young people, lawyers and business people, collaborating on this and learning the ways of open. We also have a review of the UK's open source environment being published this week in collaboration with OSER. Although we're a UK-focused organisation, we do a lot of international collaboration and intend to do a lot more. So that's something you will be able to see on the Commission's OSER website this week. And then thirdly, perhaps the piece that we get most traction with at the moment is learning. Obviously, Future Leaders is part of that, but we also have focused on primary, secondary and tertiary education and learning. Now, tertiary has gone through a very difficult pandemic time, so we removed the focus on that for now. And primary, little kids, we expect to pick up on later in the year. But we've been focusing on high school, secondary school-aged kids. We launched a competition with the support of Red Hat and GitHub. That competition was using something called the Mini Moo Glove. Very pleased to say the Mini Moo Glove has been open sourced as part of the process. And it's created by a lady called Helen Lee, an open hardware expert from the UK living in Germany. But it was inspired by Imogen Heap, the double Grammy award-winning singer. And Imogen and Ariana Grande have both toured using the MyMoo glove, which inspired the Minimoo. Now, our intention was to have kids collaborating using this glove and to bring the regional finalists from these collaborations to London to spend a day in Red Hat's labs, learning to code and spend time with Imogen. Sadly, in a pandemic world, that wasn't possible. But we sort of came out of it rather well by repurposing the funds to create a kids course. And the Open UK Kids course has launched as a summer camp this week. The kids course has 10 animated episodes, the first lesson being narrated by Imogen Heap. You can see a clip from that here. And what we've done is we've rolled that into a digital kids camp with e-zines. So for each episode, we have an e-zine. They'll be available on the Open UK website globally. You'll be able to download them wherever you are in the world. And that will be on openuk.uk/openkidscamp. Even more excitingly, perhaps, because you need a glove to participate in the course, we have been very lucky to be sponsored by Huawei and to be distributing free of charge 3,000 special edition gloves. So 3,000 of these kits are going to kids across the UK this summer so that they can participate in the course. Sadly, the giveaway is only available in the UK, but as I said, the kids camp, if anybody's interested, hashtag OpenUKCamp or openuk.uk/openkidscamp. So the last thing I'd like to mention to you about Open UK is Ditto, developing the open, obviously a fundamental principle of open source, but also the name of a collaborative project built through a consortium, which is funded by Innovate UK. And the Ditto project is creating e-obs systems for hospitals using open source. Like most people in Open, I have a variety of roles. So as well as being CEO of Open UK, I'm a European rep at the Open Invention Network, which is the world's largest defensive intellectual property organization in history. We have almost 3,000 companies and individuals signed up, and they each commit through the same agreement. They all sign the same cross license that should they hold patents that read on or apply to open source based on an open source definition, that they won't apply those patents to the others. They'll allow a license to them and they won't exert or sue on those patents. It's something that if you are getting into open source, as you'll see in a minute, all companies are getting into open source, whether they know it or not, that you should actually be signed up to. It's a matter of good housekeeping and good governance in open. So if anybody would like to find out more about that, please ping me afterwards. I mentioned that I have a few roles. Unsurprisingly, I'm on a number of advisory boards. The OASIS Open Standards Body have an open source advisory board, Open Projects Advisory, that I'm a member of. I'm on the KDE advisory board, and as mentioned, I chair the UN's Technology Innovation Labs Open Source and IP advisory boards. I'm usually asked about that, so I've included a link here to an interview that will tell you more both about the labs and our work as an open source group. I also do a little bit of work with non-open source, and I mentor senior staff and sit on advisory boards for companies like Beamery, which is a SaaS HR product. Final thing I want to mention is the book, the Free and Open Source Law, Policy and Practice, which is a book of 20 to 30 international experts' work, which I'm editing. It will be published in January and cross all areas of law, policy and practice for open technology. So software, hardware and data. Thanks to the Veitch Foundation, not only is Oxford University Press publishing this as a book, but we will have it available open access to you all to dip into. Obviously, part of my role is that I spend a lot of time attending conferences and events like this and talking to people about open source. So how did a nice girl like me end up in a space like open source? Well, in early 2008, I joined an organization called Canonical. You may have heard of them. They're probably Europe's biggest open source company, one of the biggest in the world. And I joined as employee 165 to set up and run the legal department as general counsel. And I ran that globally for 5 years. The company I joined in 2008 was very different from the company today. And it was in a technology world and environment that was entirely different from where we sit now. Our main competitor was a company called Red Hat. We were focused on the desktop and making open source and Ubuntu the biggest operating system on the desktop, but we also focused on the server space, which was Red Hat's home turf. Both companies started to evolve. Now, you've probably heard of Red Hat, even if you've not heard of Canonical. Open source company that was subject to the biggest tech transaction in history last year, being sold to IBM for $34 billion. I think if you needed more proof that open source was fundamental and central to technology, I don't think you'd find more proof than this. But Red Hat and Canonical were competitors, not just in the server space, but in the emerging cloud environment. We took each other on tooth and nail, head to head. Simon Wardley, who was the director of cloud at Canonical at the time, quotes us as having 76% of the cloud marketplace, by which he means 76% of the instances in the different cloud products, whether you're looking at Azure or AWS or Google or any other public cloud environment. And we did that at the same time as collaborating with Red Hat. And we could do that through organizations like the Linux Foundation and OpenStack. This is a little trophy I was given for being part of the OpenStack drafting committee. And that drafting committee was important because the way we were able to collaborate then, as with now, is by having solid antitrust and competition principles in place, but also by appropriate intellectual property and commitment structures. Now, that collaboration means that you will collaborate to create better code, to save money, and to be more efficient and effective. You do that at the same time as competing. Now, you may be in different verticals or the same verticals, yet you collaborate. And this is often referred to as co-opetition. And that co-opetition is fundamental in the development of the last 10 years of open source, also in the cloud and platform economies. Now, what you will have seen, not just with Red Hat and Canonical, is of course the emergence of the platform economy as fundamental to our personal, private and business lives. Everything these days runs in that environment. Giving you this quick snapshot from the Linux Foundation CNCF project, you'll see investment in the billions, valuations in the trillions across several hundred different projects. Those projects are the landscape that CNCF sees for cloud. Whether you're looking at Kubernetes or something else, you are going to find that your cloud is built on open source. I'll come back to that when we talk about Microsoft later. So we've seen a combination of a move to the cloud and platform economy with digital transformation change the environment and the world that we live in to an open one. You may have heard the quote, software is eating the world. Andreessen Horowitz quote of recent years, and I think we can acknowledge that thanks to digital transformation, all companies today are technology companies. They either create, distribute, or have their products consumed using software. Jim Zemlin of the Linux Foundation responded to software is eating the world with open source is eating software's lunch. And there's never been a truer statement. All companies are technology companies, and all technology companies are or will very shortly become open through the digital transformation. And that open source doesn't just affect the software used or the platform environments, it has a clear impact on the hardware environment. When I started at Canonical in 2008, you'll see that time period of 2008 to 2018, that decade constantly referred to. What you found then was that hardware was much bulkier. And by being much bulkier, it was less green and less environmentally friendly. It used more power and it created more carbon emissions. If you then roll that into the third open data, you will find that we have an environment that is improving through green technology and the three opens. We are actually working with Arup, who many of you will know, a smart city organization, and we will be doing an open data project on pandemic data very, very shortly. I've mentioned the three opens. We are also working on a project for COP26. We have a work group. Our work groups are focused on UK people, but we do welcome international collaboration. And that work group is looking at how these three opens combine at a time point where the happenstance of cloud, containerization, virtualization, moving to metal, edge computing, 5G, and an array of other technologies puts us into a very important moment in time where we have the opportunity to make our technology through open greener and greener. So why does this matter? Well, I'm an open source advocate, so is he. We're both going to tell you matters. One company that's been on a journey that's a great example, not just in technology, but also across all businesses, is Microsoft. Famously, Steve Ballmer, the former CEO of Microsoft back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, described, maybe even 20 these days, described open source as a cancer. And Microsoft has come a very long way. One of the biggest tech transactions that we saw last year was the acquisition of GitHub for an open source company for $8 billion. And clearly, Microsoft have taken that journey very seriously. Now, this slide is Satya Nadella in 2018. It's Steve Wally, a good friend of mine, giving his keynote at the Linux Foundation in Edinburgh at their Open Source Summit. And he's talking about Microsoft's journey to joining the Open Invention Network and sharing its patent base with the open source communities. And Satya is asking us to judge Microsoft not by the actions of the past, but actions of today and the future. And Steve explained Microsoft's journey and reasoning on the basis of three things. Firstly, 10 years ago, customers were not asking for open source, and today they are. Secondly, the world is based on cloud, and they have a little product called Azure, which needs cloud. For them to be able to run that product and to be competitive, they have to make it open source, they have to build it in open source and collaborate and share with open source communities. And then thirdly, developers. So all of you these days will need to hire developers. Those developers, particularly the younger ones who've grown up with open as a norm, will not work for organizations that don't know how to collaborate and don't use open source. Microsoft's experience is slightly ahead, I would suggest, than some of the companies that are on today or working in these projects with FIWARE. And you're probably sadly still in stage 2 at that point of depression and change, possibly just moving into stage 3 in acceptance, and hopefully very soon into acceptance and integration. So it matters hugely, because this code that we're offering to share, that we want to collaborate with, that we hope you will use more and more of, is built on openness and collaboration. That collaboration is allowing us to create technology which reduces our carbon footprint, which improves our green technology, and really will be the future. So just before I leave you, I have a very short space here, and I appreciate I've spoken very quickly. There's a number of links in the deck. One last thing I'd like to mention to you is Open Tech Response, which is a response to the pandemic, and it's a way to pull together and make projects aware of each other across open source responses, whether software, hardware, or data, to the pandemic. There's been many, many of those, and often they work in silos, not knowing each other, and this creates a way for them both to reach out to each other, but also through our new matchmaking tool to be able to find volunteers for their projects. And with that, I have pretty much run out of slides. I'm afraid I'm not going to be around in your Q&A, but I'm very happy to hear from you afterwards.
Hey, Amanda, that was terrific. Let's give Amanda a hand, because I just love that so much. I'm so happy you touched on so many great points. The community versus global, this idea of the tension and the need to, it's yin and yang, you know, they need to work together. We need, you know, we are communities, but we're also global. I also love your phrase, the joy of community, because that's certainly something that's near and dear to my heart. Also, thank you for, you know, taking the time, and I'm going to repeat them. I think we all need to memorize the 3 opens. We have open source software, open hardware, and open data. And I know that there's a tendency to kind of separate these things, but they're all, again, it's all one. Also, this idea that I'm just so happy that you made the connection between open source and a greener and future with less carbon. So with that, and also, so definitely everybody buy Amanda's book in January. And when we love the Mini Moo glove, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. This was great. And the kids camp, all good. All righty, take care, be well. So next,
thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Marc Desplantes. He's solutions architect at Orange. And Marc, in addition to having a fantastic beard, is going to speak about how the EU funded projects to fight climate change. Marc?
Yeah, I will disconnect and reconnect a few seconds, please. Okay, so I'm Marc Desplantes. I'm a research engineer from Orange, working for at least 5 years, about around FIWARE and FIWARE project for digital farming and smart city. And I will try to explain you today how a European funded project could help fighting climate change. Okay, so some obvious part, I think we all agree here that climate change is a real issue, at least for human beings, that human activity has its part of responsibility, and at least that we can still act to limit the effect. But to do so, we can't continue wasting resources. It's not only energy and so on. You have to be smart on everything and finding solution to have a better resource management, because we're wasting a lot too much thing. One example of the kind of project we can do is picture you have here. It's a small farm in Ivory Coast where we try to work with a farmer to find a better irrigation solution to help him improving the water consumption. So it's an example of what can IT solution can provide to help on this. But it's not the only problem we have to solve. And we also have to change the way we developing solution and the way we define the architecture of the project we use. For example, on this farm, we start working on tomatoes, and we start working with them to deploy the solution and start making some tests with them. And after a few months, the guys come back to us and say, okay, tomato is good, but we want to do the same thing on other vegetable, for example, lettuce, and how we can do that. On previous company I've worked, one solution, one answer that could have been done is, okay, you know, lettuce is a complete different vegetable, so you have to build another complete different solution, and that would be amazing, but you have to trash everything and buy a complete new solution. It's not acceptable anymore. Another problem is, for example, the company that delivers irrigation solution for tomatoes just decide to stop working or to not enhance the system to manage the vegetable, and that way the farmer has to go to another competitor, and the answer will probably be the same. It will be, okay, we can provide you a solution for lettuce, but you have to rebuild and rebuy everything and deploy everything again. And it's not possible to accept that, because we waste it's too much waste of things, and we can't continue like that. We have to think of architecture to be more sustainable. We have to define solutions that could work. Sorry. That could evolve and could be adapted to the future, the needs of the customer. One of the things we have to do is core components have to be reusable, they have to be interoperable, and we have to be able to enhance the solution. To do so, we can work, of course, with open source, but some companies will not want to have open source to open source everything of what they build. So at least what we need is to provide a common interface to propose to make all those components interoperable. And we need a standard way to orchestrate the different modules in order to build something workable. For example, if you have common way to define how a soil master sensor will produce data to the system, and you define standard for that, it's easy to change the solution of soil master to another one if you need something else, or you can mix two different kind of technology if needed. One thing that is good to do this kind of stuff is FIWARE, for example, because FIWARE provide the context blocker that we can use as a data-driven orchestrator. And each time, so you can define a way that each data producer use common data models on FIWARE. So to push the data, and you can subscribe to the modification of the data for the other modules to react to them. So for example, you can you have the data producers that produce the data, and the compute models that do stuff on your data will react when the data change. On smart irrigation, for example, when the soil master sensor provide new data of the soil master, you can activate the modules that calculate the needs of water for the plants, and then activate the irrigation if needed. So that's one thing that we can do for that. So with FIWARE, we can, and using microservice architecture, you have something that is very great. But you know, Orange is a big company, and I work for the research team, but we have a complete different team that is a business team. The problem is when I try to explain how my solution is good to the business team, the answer was quite weak. They say, okay, you provide us a nice solution, but we have to rely on standard we don't own and we don't manage. So it's a constraint. You provide a solution that make a competitor, that will allow a competitor to take your business easily. So it's not really good. And the benefit of this kind of architecture is providing solutions the client don't ask, really. So clearly, they don't want. And that's where the European project is really useful for me. Because with European funding project, Europe decides, of course, the topic of the project. You just they don't just give you money to do whatever you want. They provide you, they decide the topic you have to go on and so on. So it's allowed to address some topics that is not really bankable, or not obviously bankable at least. So it's really great. And you're not working alone on the project. You have to work with other partner on the project. So you have to share your knowledge, you have to share your experience, you have to share your technical solution, and you have to make sure that the software you develop and the solution you develop could work with what does the other partner. So you have to think the solution interoperable and so on. The other thing is on European funding projects, they impose you some technologies. So for example, if you answer to a project, putting FIWARE in it is a good thing if you want your project to be accepted. It's not mandatory, and it's not. It will not guarantee you that it will be accepted, but usually it's a good thing. And the other thing that is really great is you have to communicate a lot with your project. So you have to, the dissemination is a really important part of the grant agreement, usually. So you have to communicate, so you have to share your experience also you can display the result of your work to the customer. You can display, you can demonstrate that the solution you work on a real project for your business team. And that's really great because it's really helping us to pushing the solution. For example, I will show you later a project called Pixel. When the project starts, my business team doesn't want to hear about FIWARE. Now the project starts to have a result. They want to have a big presentation of it because they want to see if it's usable for the project we have on the business team. So you have to work on dissemination. And that's it. So on, for example, on Orange, we have a different kind of project we work on actually on with a European funding project. We have, for example, one project that is really nice is to check, to see how to manage the network energy consumption of the network design with the end-to-end consideration and with all the partners involved in the definition of the network. So it's a great project because on this project we work, we try to reduce the energy consumption, but not only for one actor or for one specific equipment, but for the whole system. And so it's a really nice project. We have other project. I don't see it. So we have project also another project about electric consumption for society, and we have, for example, we have another project that is another work on energy that is that try to find a way to optimize the way we consume energy for video distributing system. So for system like Netflix, video on demand, and so on. So we have those kind of projects that is funded by European Foundation, European. And the fact is, all those projects is really nice. It's good for environment, but for all the competitor working on it, it would not right now directly increase the business or make them win more money. So if the European Union don't have funding this kind of project, those kind of projects will not be addressed by this different competitor, or at least not the same way. Another project that you can show as an example of what we do is the Pixel project. So if you want information about Pixel, you have it on the web link. We don't get this part. Yeah, that's the last slide, and we'll be quick on this one. So on the Pixel project, we have a lot of data sources we try to import on the Pixel platform, and we use the data imported to run some common algorithm to calculate environmental impact for those. And what is great with the architecture we decide to use based on FIWARE and so on, is that all port provides the same kind of data, but with a completely different work. And to import those data, we just have to for each port to create a JSI agent to push the data on the system. And the good thing is what we develop for the Pixel platform for importing data can be reused by the port to share the data with everything. And that's what is great with this kind of project. We have to think something that is reusable outside the project itself. So we'll finish it.
Mark, I'm sorry, it's Mike here. I really love how you you're stressing the need for optimization and this idea of tackling internal and external resources, sustainable economic growth, and environmental impact mitigation. That's so important to get all those together. And so I just want to thank you for bringing that up. Also, I'm really happy that you mentioned that if you're pitching a project to the EU, use FIWARE to increase the chances of your project being accepted. That makes like so much sense that that might be one of the most important takeaways from this. So let's just to review, waste is bad, optimization is good. Optimization requires getting a handle around all of your parameters, and I think you did just such a great job of reminding us of that. So thank you so much. I'm going to kind of just rush ahead here to introduce Dr. Monique Calisti. Dr. Calisti, are you ready? Dr. Calisti is the president of Digital for Planet, and she's going to speak on how digital technology and innovation is essential for the sustainability of our planet.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so today I will be talking to you about a few things that I've learned in the last few years leading a company, Martel Innovate, very active on the digital innovation front, and deciding to do something more concrete for the sustainability of our planet. So, as we all know, digital technologies and digital innovation are essential to develop our organizations, business, communities, and cities in a more sustainable direction. But we are also very well aware that digital technologies are also part of the problem. We all deal with an amount of software and hardware resources that is growing exponentially. There is a tendency to replace rather than repair and reuse, both at the level of personal devices we have, but also the level of IT infrastructure sometimes. A lot of times software development force hardware upgrades, and in general technology drives electricity demands and has a pretty important carbon footprint. Especially because technology oftentimes requires specific environment exploitation that is not necessarily very sustainable. And there's a lot of recent studies and publications that you can find around about how negative can be on the planet, on the environment, on the cities that we live in, a consumption, a wrong, let's say, digital behavior. Digital behavior that includes not only the production, but also the deployment. Here there are a few facts and figures that I'm sure you might be pretty familiar with. An average mobile device creates 55 kilograms of carbon emissions in manufacture. That is equivalent to 26 weeks of laundry. We use, if we used every phone sold in 2020 for 1/3 longer, we would prevent carbon emissions equal to Ireland annual emission, and so on and so forth. So just to, you know, it's time, especially after these long months of lockdown in which all of us have got somehow more into a digital sort of addiction loop, because digital was the way that we could all be connected beyond confinement. But we all got sort of so much into these rhythms in life that we need to stop and think what kind of impact this can have on our planet. Our planet is calling and is calling for greener and better sustainable digital technologies, because this is possible, this is a must, this is what we must do. But we also need digital solutions that can help our organizations and our societies to better use resources that are limited and that we must preserve. So in this sense, the reason that I mentioned that is about greening technologies, greening digital technologies, and on the other hand, using those technologies to green the environment, which of course is not at all a tricky point. On the other hand, there is a plethora of new applications popping up, luckily, that are trying to enforce awareness and a change in our digital, but also in our analog life and behaviors, that are trying to help with controlling the air quality, the waste management, water conservation, greenhouse gas emissions. I'm sorry. Okay. So there's also a number of solutions that are becoming more and more important at the municipality level. Within several of the projects with Martel that I've been involved in, also within the context of the FIWARE community, we have looked very much at how to use technologies, how to use open source technologies in particular, to develop solutions and platforms that could help preserving resources and could help by offering tools that can guarantee a better visibility on how resources are consumed or what kind of impact they can have. And there's a number of success stories that you can have a look at. The pages of FIWARE that really reports on concrete examples of how this is possible. Now, looking more into sustainable cities, well, you all know that most of the humanity is clustered more and more around cities. And around cities is where the biggest part of the consumption of energy is happening. Several sectors are responsible for that. Of course, not only transportation, not only the ICT domain, but surely the ICT domain is growing its negative impact, and therefore we have to do something. This is also one of the reasons why Digital for Planet, this non-for-profit association that I will talk to you about in a second, decided to gather together players from different public and private sectors to look at how concretely we can start from the environment where we live, from the cities where we live, to enforce new behaviors and preserve our planet. To make a concrete example, given that we are discussing within the context of FIWARE, I brought here in this slide a specific case that we worked on with the electricity canton Zurich in Switzerland, in collaboration with Martel Innovate, that powered the solution that is being developed for air quality and waste management optimization, thanks to an open data and open source platform, Orchestra Cities, that is developed thanks to a number of standards, APIs, and data models that are open. One of them, a set of those modules is the FIWARE APIs, and this has been successfully demonstrated in a real case scenario. And in particular, this has been giving concrete feedback on how a better use of resources, of data coming from these resources can help saving up energy and enforcing a more controlled deployment of limited resources. Also very important in extreme emergency conditions in which resources are becoming even more precious, whenever there is a shortage in communications or a shortage in the way the society functions. Now, the case for open source, because today we touched several topics. I was listening to the previous speakers, very inspiring points and different views on the main topic of the day, that is creating a case for open source technologies as a way to address environmental sustainability concerns. And we, at Digital for Planet, we do believe in digital technologies. We are technologists, we are innovators, and we do believe that we can have greener digital technologies. But in particular, also as software developers, we believe that open source software, and not only, of course, this applies to any kind of open data, open hardware kind of approaches, is very essential to really empower a more energy aware and environmentally sustainable behavior, because the principle is always the same. If you reduce, reuse, and recycle what is available, also in terms of software, you save up hours of, let's say, energy, and you save up also on the electronic waste that is produced by software development. So we do believe that the kind of initiatives like FIWARE, but also several others, Red Hat is powering several very important open source initiatives that are going in this direction. It's essential for the future of our technology, because digital is part of our future. It's already an essential part of our present. And the COVID has shown that there's only an acceleration process, that is just a matter of accelerating this process for our society, especially in extreme conditions. Now, what Digital for Planet was born a few months ago, so it's still a very young association that aims to create a strong network of public, private research institutions that can help advancing the adoption of sustainable digital technologies. And in doing so, Digital for Planet is embracing public and private organizations, from small to medium to larger ones, in which that are guided by the will of developing and adopting responsible and ethical digital solutions to transform our society and to preserve our planet. How to do that? Well, that's a big challenge, as you might all know, but we strongly believe that by joining forces we can achieve a stronger impact. The idea is to essentially gather resources at several levels, in terms of knowledge, in terms of resources, in terms of funding, in terms of networking power, in terms also of policy and regulatory weight that we can have in shaping the digital transformation. As I mentioned, one of the key things of the core foundational elements is that we believe that by liaising initiatives at a pan-European but also international level is essential. The European Green Deal has been announced last December. Well, previous announcement had been made, but more details have been provided, and there is also with the latest budget discussions, a clear evidence that Europe has a strong ambition in this direction, and that researchers and innovators, especially in the field of digital technologies, have a big part to play. So the idea is to liaise, share, and allow networking of people and of organizations that can achieve stronger results by joining forces. Now, there is a few specific points related to the kind of benefits that we envisage to offer. What for me, and as president of Digital for Planet, is the fact that there is a lot that we still give for granted. A lot of habits that we have that we don't even recognize can be negative. And there is a lot of space, a lot of room to improve the way each individual behaves digitally. We can do a lot by informing and educating younger and older generations. And this is one of the major aspects that we are gonna deal with in Digital for Planet. The ambition is just to gather as many participants as possible, so that by growing together, we can help achieving stronger change. I think that it all starts, this picture that you see on the background is what I see out of my window. I'm lucky, I'm with my kids confined in my mom's place. What I try to teach my children and what I try to share with you is that being online is a habit that many of us give for granted. well, that many of us do not really control. We have to educate ourselves. We have to give ourselves a break for, here there's a typist, digital detox, because this can help our minds, our souls, and our planet. Only by avoiding sending thank you emails, we could help saving, if there's a recent statistics that says that if in the UK over 1 year people would avoid to send thank you emails, basically it would be possible to save as much energy as it's needed to power Ireland across 1 year carbon consumption. So even attaching large files, deleting old emails, these are small steps, but these are essential steps because it's a fact that the data center are consuming more and more energy, and that our organizations need more and more power. So we need to educate ourselves in the first place. And I hope that this kind of discussions, like the one we are having today, can help a little bit ourselves and the people we are in touch with to change and be more respectful of what we should mind better. So thanks a lot for your attention. And yes, if you have any question, feel free to contact me.
Dr. Callisti, thank you so much. That was absolutely terrific. I just love how you mentioned that digital technology is both the solution and the problem, but more directly, you touched on something that's very important, which is this notion of how digital behavior or how our digital bad habits actually contribute to climate change and global warming. It's something that we really have to keep front and center, because that's something that we can control. We can control our behaviors, we can control our habits, we can replace our bad habits with good habits. And just making sure that we don't hang on to 25 years worth of emails. Very important. Then the idea, and then again, thank you for mentioning FIWARE APIs, and just really focusing on the connection between our digital behaviors and saving energy, or let me put it this way. When we do bad things, we use more energy. Being wasteful is as bad as using more energy. The less energy we use, the better the planet is going to be, the faster we'll achieve decarbonization. And I'm just really glad that you brought those together. And we can have greener technologies. There's no reason why we can't use technology, to reduce waste, and then that will put us in a place where we're using energy more efficiently, where we're conserving energy, we're using energy more efficiently, and we're turning to renewable sources of energy to create power. So thank you so much for mentioning all these. I particularly, again, this idea of of bad habits. So please go to Monique's website and look up more about her organization, Digital for Planet, and all the great work that she's doing. And now, and thank you again. This is genuinely our heartfelt thanks. I'd like to introduce Juano Hierro. He's the CTO of the FIWARE Foundation. And Juano is going to talk about how FIWARE can support the development of smart solutions for the green economy.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon from the nice village of Conil in Cádiz in Spain. Very sunny place and wonderful place I would recommend to visit. Okay, FIWARE is already providing strong technology foundation for development of the smart solutions, which are already addressing the challenges and helping to meet the goals of a green economy. And that is because green smart solutions in many aspects gravitate around management of context data, coming from sensors, from mobile apps used by citizens, information systems like weather forecast systems, traffic management systems, energy systems, all kind of data resources. And FIWARE actually brings the superpower to bring all that data together and create a digital twin representation of the real world that is constantly kept up to date, based on which smart solutions can be developed. Later in this event, we will hear the testimonies of several use cases which were developed using FIWARE, because FIWARE, and this is the first message I wanted to convey, means mature technology you can use today. FIWARE is driving key platform standards green economy demands. First of all, an API to standard API, open API to get access to all these contextual data, digital twin representation of the world that is the fuel of all innovative services we need to develop to address the challenges of the green economy. It's also driving the definition of the standard data models that are essential to create solutions that can be replicable across cities, across regions, across domains, and also support the interoperability, the replicability of those solutions. We have reached already a relevant endorsement at global level, not only by standard bodies like ETSI, also by organizations like GSMA. We were driving quite interesting use cases around green economy with them, proving that the way you could architect solutions based on FIWARE and NGS-ILD, like the standard API to be used, could bring the kind of answers and drive economy of the scales. Within Europe and becoming a building block that is now part of the CEF Connecting Europe Facility digital program. The context broker, which is the core element of the FIWARE architecture, has become the basis for the digital service infrastructures that will allow development of digital services across member states. And there is a very important space in that respect for smart solutions that will support the green economy. Collaboration with TM Forum, another global organization, which has decided to endorse the kind of work we are doing and are collaborating with us in the creation of and the driving of these standards. How FIWARE standards are helping boosting a green economy? First of all, replicability of solutions. That is essential to bring economies of scales, and very important from our point of view, the sustainability of investments by those who we want to develop smart solutions. Because if they can develop a solution once that can be replicable in multiple regions, in multiple cities, then they will find the right incentives to invest in the development of those solutions, knowing they can replicate that in front of different customers for different public administrations for different sectors. FIWARE, with this kind of standards we are talking about, is also helping to monitor in real time the situation, the different parameters that are affecting a green space, and help us to bring the kind of smart reactions, smart solutions that will be able to bring a solution to things as they go. The ability to merge all kind of data, and this is one of the reasons why standards for smart data models are key, will help to create better insights that will ultimately drive the adoption of the smart solutions. Those standards will be also a cornerstone for sharing best practices, for benchmarking the solutions, the key performance indicators that will be monitored in the different regions, leveraging on FIWARE-based smart solutions. With this, with these standards, we are able to create different architecture of smart solutions. I will not go into the details of this, but I wanted to bring these slides to bring to the attention that we are developing different webinars. We encourage you to attend or watch once they have been recorded, where we are explaining how FIWARE can be used to architect the solution that may help to address the challenges for a green economy. What comes next, and this is my last slide, is a number of topics in which we are currently working that will bring new components in the FIWARE ecosystem that people will be able to reuse, that will create and enlarge this technology foundation for development of smart solutions. First of all, and I want to insist on this, we will be working and continue working in definition of standard data models. We launched a smart data models initiatives towards the definition of common data models that can be reused across domains. This is a very open initiative where we are partnering with different associations and initiatives around the world. So join us to define those data models that are going to be essential for the creation of replicable and interoperable solutions and providing the basis for a digital single market. Integration with blockchain and distributed ledger technologies is another aspect where we are working. In the next FIWARE release, we are bringing already a number of components in the FIWARE catalog that will make it really easy to integrate smart solutions powered by FIWARE with different kind of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. And why this is going to be essential for a green economy? First of all, because this will allow us to ensure transparency in processes, to be able to create functions for auditing, performing forensics on processes of systems powered by FIWARE, and this is essential to demonstrate how solutions are able to address the problems, and there is no space for fake data, fake processes. Also bringing the foundation to support certification in quality of processes, certification on, for instance, also air quality in the different cities. Because FIWARE brings the perfect combination with blockchain technology. Blockchain chain technology in the first place because ensures that you cannot manipulate the data you store on the ledger, on the distributed ledger, on the blockchain, but FIWARE bringing something to blockchain technologies that they need, which is that the data we store in the ledger is data that comes from real sensor, has not been manipulated by the humans, and really ensuring that the flow of data from when it was captured until it is stored in the blockchain is not being manipulated by anyone. Third element is how we are working on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and creating, in the first place, a standard architecture enabling the delivery of AI and ML services as a service from the cloud, with the intention of creating a framework that will help to extend any powered by FIWARE solution with artificial intelligence services from the cloud, following a plug-and-play approach. And that will be cornerstone to allow that those that are developing smart solutions may rely on other organizations with strong skills on artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques, and be able to enrich what they are developing with these kind of services. Last but not least, and to mention another point where we are developing our roadmap is that about data and services marketplaces. This will help to boost the creation of multi-site markets with where the different actors, the cities, the organizations managing buildings, the smart port or the smart airport, all of them can work together, exchange data, also bring the incentive to the private sector to share part of this data because the ability to monetize it, and all, of course, keeping sovereignty on data and making sure that all privacy policies are enforced. These are the elements where we are working today, and last message I wanted to convey is that of a call to action for you to join us in all these activities to accelerate them and making sure that the future will be more green and will bring a better world where to live. Dream big because it works. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Juano. That was beautiful. And now we're going into the Q&A session. So let me start off by asking you a question while you're still here. You mentioned the importance of cross-domain approaches and multidisciplinary strategies. I mean, why are cross-domain multidisciplinary strategies so important as we move forward, using open source to address climate change issues?
Yes, I mean, one of the barriers that we have to overcome is that vision that applications of each domain are very, very specific, and there is no data coming from other domains which will be useful. More and more, we are experiencing how data that might be managed by other actors will be useful to improve your own process, and data coming from other organizations. So we have to create a digital continuum and based on standards for enabling all these parties to share the data, and each of them, by combining the data others are sharing with the data they own, be able to create more meaningful insights. This is something that will drive, we believe, innovative services for the future. But for this, we need common standards regarding data models, common standards regarding how that data is being shared by the different organizations. This is something cornerstone to understand happily, and we are very proud to say this. And here in Europe, the European Commission has understood this, and this is the reason why they have adopted the context broker technology as a building block for creating the digital service infrastructures of the future in Europe. But this is a concept that can be exported to other regions, is something that is global. It's not linked to a particular region, and it's something we are promoting in other parts of the world.
That's really, really helpful. Thank you. And again, it gets us back to this idea of the three opens: open source software, open hardware, and open data. And thank you for leading us in this, because it is important. There's the idea of silos. And we can't go back to the 1970s and having everything siloed. That would be terrible. I think we have time for one more question in this first Q&A session. So, Dr. Callisti, the green economy, we talk a lot about the need for being socially inclusive. How can we ensure social inclusivity? And that means everybody, people of all ages, people of all ethnicities, colors, cultures, ages. Did I mention ages? Yes, as I get older, that becomes more important to me. How can we make sure that the societies that we're building are really socially inclusive?
Well, if I had the answer,
Oops, I think I feel as though we've lost you there. Let's see. Let me just go back to. I apologize. I apologize for this, Monique. We'll try to get back to you. A question came in for me, talking about this idea of whether smart cities will inherently be elite in some way. That's a really good question because it's a painful question because it's hard to answer. Because when we want things to become better, we often impose our own notions of what is good and what is better on other people. And that opens us up to the charge, quite properly, of being elitist. I don't know, I wish that I knew how to address that idea. I think that it's something we just have to, as leaders in this movement, one, we have to be very careful not to be elitist, but when people accuse us of being elitist, we have to be ready to respond in ways that aren't defensive or, or in other words, we need to respond in ways that lower the temperature and that make the conversation, that guide the conversation into a more positive area. So this is something, of course, again, this is something that I learned, as a parent, which is, when people will say things that that are whatever, insulting, challenging, offensive, but part of our role in explaining all of this is to sit back and have the answers ready, and that's just really, really important. So so that would be my answer to that, or my non-answer, which is, if people accuse us of being elitist, we're going to have to come up with a couple of explanations for, well, no, we're really trying to do what's best for everybody, and if that makes us sound elitist for the moment, then we're guilty as charged. Please don't hold that against us. Please, let's all continue working together. I hope that makes some sense. All righty, so now we're going to go. Go ahead. Oh, are you up, Monique?
Sorry, I'm back. I just switched off the video because otherwise my connection is a bit too weak. So your question is, how can we ensure that we build more inclusive societies, right?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you, Monique.
Well, one of my first thoughts about this is that we should allow education to be better accessible to all. If we don't educate people, we automatically exclude some of them. Especially when we talk about digital inclusion, we know that there are some obvious limitations related to access to digital resources, but there's also a lot to do with digital skills and rights, digital rights. I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in this sense. Because to have access to technologies or to devices doesn't mean to have access to the right, to the digital right that we should all benefit. And we have experienced that also in the recent confinement period. For me, that's why movement like open source efforts are crucial, because they are automatically also creating a community around these initiatives that educate itself, a community that gives chances to join efforts and achieve greater impacts. So open source, in my opinion, as a software engineer, but also as believer in digital technologies for the good of our society, are an essential ingredient of a more democratic and a more inclusive society.
Okay, that's a great, thank you, because, and it kind of dovetails with this earlier question about the risk of appearing elitist. The best way to avoid that is to be as inclusive as possible, and I think that that's something that we can keep in the front of our mind at all time, and I think it's necessary for us. So thank you. At this point, we're going to move forward with some case studies, and Antonio Yara, CEO of Hopu, am I pronouncing that correctly? Antonio, take it away. Thank you so much.
So let me switch on my camera. Can you see my screen correctly? Yes, I think yes.
Yes, your screen looks great.
So you can see my screen completely?
Yeah, we see Hopu on the Hopu Smart Cities on the left, and then a gorgeous bunch of clouds on the with some buildings on the right.
Okay, perfect, excellent. Yeah, because I am trying to reduce the GoToMeeting. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, okay, so thank you. Hello, everybody. A big pleasure to be here with all of you. Let me share my experience, how we are doing real climate change mitigation and supporting urban authorities with FIWARE in their daily activities in order to do evidence-based action plans. And what's already mentioned by the different talks today, there is a new urban development, new ways to make urban investment. Now we are approaching that everything must be based on KPIs, must be based on data, the most important must be based on evidence. So we need to leverage all this evidence and previous experience in order to take benefit of that. We have right now a situation very special in Europe, that majority of the ERDF fund, the European Research and Development Funds, are not properly executed and are not able to be executed on time, just because several times they are not able to address all the KPIs as they are explained and they are expected from the European framework. Now, with the Green Deal, is it even much more difficult, because as you know, 60% of the bill will be just whole and will be only paid based on the outcomes. So it's very important to know and to be clear that even in these cases, we are requiring an extra effort to understand exactly which are the real impact that the action you will do that will means that you will not have any major risk, that the investment you are doing will not have the avoidance and the consequence that you were expecting. And that is where FIWARE makes a lot of sense. The interconnection of this urban data space, that is what now is so called in the cities, urban data space that interconnect all these different areas in order to support this data-driven approach is what we are helping and we are working with. For that, what we are doing in Hopu and what we are doing together with several partners and in collaboration with the FIWARE Foundation is the interconnection of a lot of available data sources. Now it's very interesting, all the activities in order to leverage and make use of available data, like for example, Copernicus from satellite data, all the integration with open data thanks to all the open standard and all the homogenization. And of course, also the support with in situ, hyperlocal, high data quality in order to get all this high accuracy and in order to understand what is exactly going on there. And this is exactly the cases where we are integrating all these additional sensors together with other data sources in order to support this dashboard based on FIWARE in order to create these different tools. For example, here is an example where we are creating a huge number of indicators, modeling and creating action plans, and the most important, creating and defining this experience that can be transferred to other cities and can be extrapolated to other use cases. One particular case can be seen here. There is the city of Helsinki, that, for example, several algorithms that are creating this urban data space based on FIWARE and integrating the multiple data from multiple data sources allow us to understand, for example, what are the origins of the pollution. This is a very classical problem when you are working with cities and climate change mitigation, that cities try to focus on very specific areas, like, for example, mobility, electrical mobility, which is a very nice area to focus and a very interesting area. But when they try to estimate what are the expected impact, several times they overestimate it because they don't have the understanding of what is exactly the impact, what is coming from mobility. And here is a very clear example, like only around 20%, 16, 34, depending the area, is coming from mobility. In other areas, it's coming mainly from the port, industry, agri-food, natural sources, etc. And this is a first example of algorithms that are empowered by the capacity of FIWARE to integrate this contextualization and all into a single urban data space. From Hopo, we continue into feeding this urban data space with much more data from air quality, particle matter, noise, also affluence of people, weather, water consumption, etc. Everything always integrated into FIWARE, and on top of that, creating these indicators and valorization. Example of deployment, here we can see one example in Cartagena, which is one of the cities that is creating totally an urban plan and generation of new green zones, and on the one hand green zones, and on the other hand the low emission zones, based on the evidence base and all the data analytics, integrating open data and also our sensors. Is an example of how they are starting from setting at the beginning 6 sensors. Now they have already 16, but they started with only 6 sensors. They started to do the first decision, and with an open platform they started to do. These are examples from other cities too, but yes, they can get the affluence of people, the air quality, the noise, the pollens, for urban air, the particle, etc. So at the end of the day, we are bringing all this capacity to make more agile the urban design to climate change mitigation, make sure that cities can comply to avoid this penalty and to address in the right way new funds like the Innovation Fund and the Green Deal, to accelerate, because as I mentioned, the ERDF funds, the KPIs requirement for all this are making several times block all this investment, because several public workers doesn't feel confident about the compromise of several KPIs. And the most important, we need to rely on data quality, high reliability, and to reduce this. And for that is again where context and the interconnection of these different data domains is crucial to get this data quality. The adoption and validation to share experience, like as you know, FIWARE is adopting huge number of cities, and of course to reduce the cost and to guarantee the solution. There is some example based on FIWARE about data visualization with pollens, also with noise, and this is our experience that we will give you some example, but several of them that we are working with, but very interesting to the example that we are helping them from different domains, like Bordeaux, that we are helping them in the agri-food domain, Brook and McKellen, that they are monitoring all the noise and air quality. Cartagena, as I mentioned, this is the reference use case today, which are helping them to the new green areas and also the low emission zones. For the low emission zone, we are working also with the city of Madrid. I will describe a little bit later. Also, we are working also with other cities like Onda, also working on helping them to understand all the different aspects of where is the origins of the pollutants. Other regions like Badajoz, Santander, as you know, Seville. Seville is a very beautiful use case, because in Seville they want to understand what is exactly the impact. They have deployed 17 devices nearby to the schools, and they want really to understand what is the impact of the pollution, noise, and or the urban health really impacting the performance of the students. A very beautiful use case, and they also demonstrate that the climate change, the green economy is not only helping in the nature aspect, but also in the socioeconomic aspect in different domains. And it we are in views also, of course, in Girona and Catalonia, also helping in their quality plan. As I mentioned, the low emission zones, that now all the cities over 50,000 inhabitants must have all the low emission zones, and that is where again FIWARE must have a key role, because there is a huge number of decisions about traffic, access to tourist areas, also working zones, etc., for defining which are going to be the areas that will be reduced the mobility for the creation of the low emission zones. We are already working with the city of Madrid, and also other example like La Palma, etc. So thank you so much. I just wanted to share in this short slot our experience. Very happy to share more and give you more details about what we are doing with Hopo, what is our experience and what is exactly the value proposition in our cities. And there is my email, and looking forward to continue discussing with all of you, and whoever wants to know more about that, just drop me an email, and looking forward to continue discussing. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you again for FIWARE for holding this kind of amazing days in this green economy.
Antonio, that was terrific. Thank you so much for that very high energy, fantastic presentation. Now we're going to jump ahead to Vincent Demortier, President of FIWARE Numérique. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And Vincent, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. So you should see my screen now. So I'm Vincent. I'm an entrepreneur and the co-founder of FIWARE Numérique, a not-for-profit association of SMEs located in northern France that is acting as a digital innovation hub to support digital transformation for any kind of local organizations. And leveraging our involvement in various European projects and initiatives, we work with local governments to take advantage of the digitalization opportunities and challenges for smart cities and territories. And today, from concrete local implementations, I'm happy to share with you some insights and learnings on how open source technology like FIWARE can support sustainable development goals and impact positively our daily lives. And as the first example, I'm going to describe what we've done here in the city of Saint-Quentin, where we are located, to improve the management of the sport fields maintenance. The main objective was to better schedule the watering operations, to minimize the usage of drinkable water, and to reduce the workload of the teams of the city green spaces services, while keeping the quality of the fields and, of course, the level of the user satisfaction. And from technical perspective, to achieve this goal, the main challenge was to correlate information and to coordinate actions managed in silos in different systems, namely the system to manage the occupation of the fields, the weather forecast, and the soil moisture sensors that have been federated in order to plan and to trigger the maintenance operation of each field, especially the automated mowing and watering operations. And well, the first results are significant, as the estimated impact is that the city saves about 20% of water and reduces the necessity for the city servants to use vehicles to go to the fields, only to adapt the parameters and trigger the operation. In terms of implementation and architecture of the solutions, we have applied the principle of the digital twins that have been described by Juanjo in the previous presentation to represent the real world that we have to manage and the physical assets and operational procedures. We have used our own FIWARE platform and harmonized data models defined by various global communities. Then we created a new common accessible by citizens and third parties under the control of local governments. This common is made of the virtualized entities and also of the relationships between these entities. So finally, we can leverage a unified standard API to build the advanced services in a more efficient, sustainable, and transparent way. The same approach has been applied in other domains, like the school restaurants managed by the city, with the challenge to reduce the food waste and also to educate the kids about what they eat and to find ways to reduce garbage. We have used the same FIWARE platform to modelize the management of the school restaurants and put some connected scales to measure in real time the generated waste. Then it is now possible to use correlated data to better define and plan the menu composition and also to sensibilize the kids to the reduction of food waste, and also the parents. So my last example, yes, to illustrate how technology can be used to federate and support local initiatives for green economy and environment preservation, is about the classified natural reserve that is fully surrounded by the urban area of the city of Saint-Quentin. And in this natural space, water is playing a central role to host and maintain a rich variety of birds, wild birds, and fragile aquatic plants. Then a research and experimentation program held by the local university has been launched to monitor the quality of the water in the natural reserve. Again, one of the principles is to correlate data from various sources to prevent water quality decrease. And one of the most notable effects of the previous deployments and structural local ecosystem is that this system deployed by the university is powered by FIWARE, then interoperable by design, and it will interact with the city digital platform, also fostering awareness and well, ideation around the environmental challenges. Curated open source technology is a great enabler for digital transformation and sustainable development, but it's not enough. The local stakeholder must be supported, federated, and integrated into global networks to access and share or adopt best practices and best of breed solutions. And that's one of the most remarkable activities of the FIWARE community that develops and supports a network of selected innovation hubs with strong commitments in local and sustainable development, leveraging the digital transformation. So that's why we invest to be part of this network, because it's a very good way to structure and to support our activities in local capacity building, including citizen participation and, of course, the development of local SMEs. And the good news from this local perspective is that the Digital Innovation Hub is apparently one strategic instrument of the Digital Europe program for the coming years. So just to come back to the sport fields use case and show concretely how the local activity of the edge is operating on the field. 2 days ago, I was on the Real Green field with those three guys you see on the picture. One is from the global corporate Rainbird, which is the world leader in irrigation system. One is from a local startup offering a decision-making system. And the third guy is from the city services. So that's probably the most exciting and maybe tougher mission of the Digital Innovation Hub. So make different organizations working together to implement innovative solutions and business models to achieve sustainable development goals. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and feel free to contact me if you want to know more. Thank you.
Vincent, thank you so much. That was a great presentation, and it was so nice seeing all of this deployed in real world settings that we're all familiar with. Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to jump to our last last but not least case study from Arjen Hoff, Director of Civity. So Arjen, are you ready?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we hear you loud and clear, and we can see your screen. Thank you so much. Okay, it's all yours.
Yeah, I will just share my screen. Just a second. Why is this one not leaving? Okay, there we go. So my name is Arjen Hoff. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to be at the end. It's always best to save the best for the end. I will present one of our cases. It's called Sniffer Bike. We do a lot of other cases as well. And we are one of the FIWARE members in the Netherlands from the beginning, and also one of the founders of the Future City Foundation in the Netherlands, focusing on the connection between urban planners and technology people. So that's also interesting to see. And the Sniffer Bike is a project we started over a year ago. We've seen examples this afternoon of measuring air quality with static sensors. The Sniffer Bike is a mobile sensor on a bicycle, not only measuring air quality, but also the routes. I hear someone talking, but I think it's just the microphone. Yeah. Okay, how does it work? It's rather straightforward. We have sensors measuring air quality, cycling routes, and road conditions. It sends its information to a SIM card to our platform. I won't go into deep on all the things. We have heard a lot about the FIWARE components, and we are completely FIWARE compliant as well, and use the data to present it in a dashboard and an app also. So this is the device that is being used by over 700 people in the Netherlands, cycling a lot of routes during the day. And every 10 seconds, we do a measurement for where they cycle and what the air quality is and the road condition. And we present it in an app. And the big thing is, it's not only about measuring things, but it's also a very participative project. A lot of people are involved, elderly people, but also people in wheelchairs or schoolers or other people are joining this project as well. And they get access to the data and can use it immediately too. And every day in real time, people can see what is cycled and how many kilometers are cycled. You can see it at the right top, how many people are actually on a bike during the day, and the actual air quality, what you see in this dashboard, is shown in real time on this map. And until now, we have cycled during a year and collected over 30 million data points with information about air quality. And it's very interesting additional information next to all the official collected air quality. And not only that, but also viewing where people are cycling. And we have seen during this corona crisis that traveling has changed. Home to work has decreased, but there's an increase in more recreative cycling for people. So it's also interesting for policymakers to know how people are cycling during the day and how they can improve roads and road conditions. Of course, all the data is available as open data, and you can use this link to get access to an API and also download the information. And over here you can see a map where we have projected all the data that has been collected until May or something like that. And you can see we have a lot of coverage over the Netherlands. The province of Utrecht was one of the initial parties that started this project. And you can see in the center of the Netherlands where the province of Utrecht is, the most points are collected, but also at other places where people are cycling during the weekend, for example, we have a lot of data. And the more purple it is, the more information has been gathered about those locations. It is a collaborative effort between a lot of parties. I'm the founder of Civity, but there are a lot of municipalities involved at the top. There are provinces involved, research institutes. It is a combination together with a sensor provider called SODAC. They are responsible for developing the sensor. We're using the FIWARE technology, and there are a lot of local organizations promoting cycling in their municipality involved as well. So this approach with a lot of participants involved makes it very interesting for people to get a better awareness and understanding of the value of data, but also about decisions policymakers make about cycle routes and air quality. And the sniffer bike project is also rewarded, and Juanjo mentioned it before, by the Connecting European Facilities as a showcase, because we make use of the context broker, as many as all of the FIWARE projects are doing. I want to show a few new things that we are doing, because we are not standing still. And one of the interesting things now is that together with a bike sharing program in the Netherlands, SODAC has developed a integrated sensor that is integrated just behind the front light of the bicycle and connected to the battery of this e-bike. And people that are hiring this bike sharing program are contributing right away now with information about air quality too. So this is a nice next step. And what I want to do next is show you a little movie, if it works. And this movie has been made together by SODAC and students of the University of Delft, the Technical University. They are working on the next phase of the sniffer bike too, and they will show you how it works. So let's see if the movie works for you as well. It's not starting on my side. Let's see what happens. I hope it works on your side as well.
In the 21st century, air pollution is an increasingly growing problem, causing environmental damage and health issues. Air quality today is measured through static monitoring stations, resulting in a limited perspective on toxic pollutants in our environment. What if we could know more on air quality all the time anywhere? How do we contribute to improving air quality? The province of Utrecht, together with Dutch companies SODAC and Civity, had a vision. They wanted to help the people contribute in collecting air quality data, so they designed the sniffer bike, a portable device which measures atmospheric particulate matter in addition to temperature, humidity, pressure, and road surface quality. It then sends this data to the online platform. And the best part? You can mount it on your bike and ride around anywhere. In fact, more than 500 people are already using the first sniffer bike prototypes and happily contributing to this noble cause. Now this vision is being taken to the next level. SODAC and the Technical University of Delft have been working on a design focusing on every aspect of the new experience known as the SODAC Air Quality Monitor. As a key feature, the SODAC AQM now shows real-time particulate matter readings using an LED indicator. Lighting on the device changes color depending on particular concentration levels, truly communicating with the user. We consulted individuals who use the prototype on a daily basis and found out that it could be more intuitive. That's why it's made easier to take on and off your bike using a turn locking mechanism. Taking the design even further, students prototyped and iterated on the assembly, trying out different combinations and running fixture tests to find the best outcome. As a result, it's much smaller now, perfect for your backpack or handbag. Using extensive power research, a newly optimized power system enables SODAC AQM to run for at least 18 hours. It also activates automatically when attached to your bike, so measurements are only taken when necessary. It is now easier than ever to charge SODAC AQM. Newly integrated LEDs inform you exactly how much power you have for your next trip and when you need to charge it. Cycling in the sun is nice, but it might rain sometimes. Luckily, the SODAC AQM was designed to comply with IP34 standards, meaning it's waterproof and dust resistant. Function is important. TU Delft also focuses on form. When the SODAC AQM was designed, air was considered a central theme for the product. The face of the new casing resembles the shape air makes as it flows through cloth, an emotion TU Delft students wanted in the design. A flowy design ensures that the device is immediately recognizable no matter where you are. It's not just a good-looking product, but something that gets people talking about SODAC AQM, about air quality. SODAC Air Quality Monitor.
Okay, let's see if I can go to the next screen. I only wanted to end this presentation just by showing and summarizing a few things. What I want to stress, if you can see my screen. No, it's still waiting for to be shared. Okay, but I just want to mention it is that besides the air quality, what I have hopefully shown is that the active involvement of different participants, not only cycle courier students, elderly, wheelchair, delivery service, etc., but also research institute, our National Institute for Environment is involved and validating the data. It's a public-private partnership, so it's provinces, municipalities, companies, local organizations, and it emphasizes the integrated policy approach, not only for air quality, but for mobility, for healthy urban living, and a participative society. And you have mentioned many times the 3 O's, but we always say it's open data, open standards, open technology. Not only the sensor, but the data and the technology is open and reusable for everyone. So that was my closing remark for now then.
Oh, that's fantastic. This was really exciting. And as someone who's who rides a bicycle quite a bit, I definitely want to get one. So you did a great job of explaining that. And let's just kind of we have just time for one really quick question. Vincent, are you still there?
Yes, I'm there.
I want to pick up on what Arjen was just talking about. And if you could give us some tips on how to encourage engagement between citizens, local experts, and digital innovation hubs to drive the local sustainability. Can you talk to us, give us some tips and advice on how to make sure that everything comes together.
Well, it's yes, a great challenge, especially if you want to include this in a public procurement process, to involve the citizens in the, let's say, in the co-creation process. So what we've done here locally is that we have set up a continuous innovation program with the local associations and with the citizens and also the SMEs. And we try to start small and to fail fast, and if it works, to try to scale fast. And also, so that's the first tip to initiate the process, I would say. And on the other hand, in terms of transformation of the public administration, it's also something maybe more technical, but when they write their public tender, we try to support them to structure the public tender by lots that can be addressable by smaller organizations. So that's my 2 cents for this question. I hope it will help.
Oh, that's fantastic. I just, Arjen, let me, can you just build on what Vincent said?
Yeah. Yes, of course. It's good to mention, because in 10 minutes is always short, that in our case, the province of Utrecht took the initiative also for a innovative tender process. And they did a small pilot with one city first, and then they said, okay, this is quite interesting, we want to grow over the whole of the province. And they did an innovative tender process and bought 500 of these things. But they said to the municipalities and to local groups, we only facilitate this, but we want you to be heavily involved in this process. So we had in every municipality a kickoff. We have awareness sessions with our National Institute for the Environment to explain how people should read the data, what kind of information is collected, and also get the questions from the audience, from the public, also to improve the device, but also the presentation of the data. So this kind of processes, hopefully I've not shown too much technology. It's only 20–30% about the technology part, but 70% about bringing people together, organizing online meetings, organizing physical meetups, etc., to explain and to help people understand the information. So we have a community manager, we have an online website, we share all the information together to get the people involved, and that works quite well.
Wow, that's great. And Antonio, are you still there?
Yes, I am here.
I'm going to give you the last word. That was really, really good advice from Vincent and Arjen. Antonio, what have you discovered in your experience are the best ways to make sure these projects actually come together?
So yeah, indeed, for me, the best experience, I think this is exactly this kind of communities like FIWARE Foundation, this kind of opportunities of creating common data models and common technologies that really can report into common urban data space, as I was mentioning. And I think that the synergies of integrating all these together is what is really enabling, what is requiring the new dimension of evidence-based action and the evidence that will make possible to really address all the challenges that we are doing in the planet right now. So I think that the planet is looking for more evidence, and now we need data for making this possible, and FIWARE is one of the real big solutions for making this.
Wow. Okay, this is extremely helpful. It's always good hearing from practitioners who are on the ground and getting things done. And thank you to everyone who has spoken so far. Okay, we are now up to our closing remarks from our CEO, Ulrich Au. Ulrich, are you there? And are you ready to help us close this wonderful, incredible session?
Yeah, I am here. Hello.
Oh, good. Well, what a great conference. And the floor is now yours. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it was really fantastic, and thank you very much, first of all, Mike, to you for this excellent moderation on the spot. Yeah, we are even 10 seconds ahead of schedule, so fantastic. But I think even more terrific for me, this lineup of speakers we had today. So thank you also for the organization team of the FIWARE Foundation for putting this all together. It was, from my perspective, excellent content we saw, and we saw excellent use cases from different areas in Europe. And believe me, there are a lot of also excellent use cases in other areas of the world, not only here in Europe. And maybe if someone of my colleagues could switch to the next slide, please. Yeah, that would help for me. And I think it became clear that cities play a large role when it comes to solving global problems, as just 2% of the world's landmass is occupied by cities, but cities account for more than 70% of the global CO2 emission, and exactly 78% of the world's energy consumption. And so I think it's good news, because it means we know where the problems are. And if we work together, we can devise effective solutions. And here I would come back to the presentations of Monique and also Carlo, which showed an excellent way how to work together and to make it happen. So are we optimistic? Yes, absolutely. I think so. And on the next page, we can see, as showcased today, digitization and interoperability are key for the digital transformation of cities, both on the technical and also on the social level. Because in our actual world, in the smart digital area, everything will gravitate around context data, data describing what's going on, where, when, and why. And this digitization will be stronger, faster, and cheaper. So we need to make it happen. We need more dialogue and interaction between different platforms and different actors, as it is shown here on this slide. In energy, it's called the sector coupling. So we need the coupling of different sectors, of silos. We heard the word of silos before. We need to break down the silos and bring data together onto platforms. And we as FIWARE, or we at FIWARE, we are very much convinced that in a digital, more and more global world, just one platform will not be able to solve all the problems. Therefore, we are very intensively working on a so-called system of systems approach, bringing different platforms together. Finally, to pave the path for a cleaner and more sustainable smart solutions market. And with this cutting-edge technology and new regulations we are facing, this process will help us to use data-driven platforms and to help to work on achieving the smart development goals which we have seen before. And FIWARE is able to help here, and thank you again to Juanjo, who is actually on vacation, so he stepped out again, but I think he clearly explained how FIWARE could help and does help in here. So the future, and I'm very much convinced of this, the future of technology is clearly on open tech. It's the only way we can create a greener future for everyone. And everyone means not only for people living in the cities. We also have to think about the rural areas, although, as I said at the beginning, more than 2/3 of the people are living in cities, but also people living in rural areas need to contribute and are contributing. So therefore, thank you very much to all of you who contributed to today, who listened, who joined us during this session, and now handing over either back to Michael or to Christina to give us a little bit of outlook what we are able to expect in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, Ulrich, thank you very much. You're handing over to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some kind of closing remarks and an outlook, I just wanted to recap a bit that today we've really learned quite a lot about how the digital revolution could unlock a green transformation of our global economy. And I think what became really clear was that life has changed almost beyond recognition in the last few decades, not only since this year, but especially this year that was very much impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. It's clear that digital innovation will continue to change society and the economy. The question is, or the feeling very often is that it's uncertain whether these new technologies will benefit the global transformation to sustainability. And so the big question is here, will digital technologies allow everyone to live in a world where the development isn't dependent on exhausting and finite resources and increasing emissions? And we heard really a lot about that today. So FIWARE in this strongly believes that open data, open source technologies, and standardized data architecture models are critical ingredients, not to say really prerequisites, to create efficient and sustainable solutions, all for this great economy space. And just to give at the very end still a few figures, only the smart cities industry is estimated to be over $900 billion worldwide and growing at around about 20% annually, and expected to surpass $3 trillion by 2026. So I guess only these numbers show already the attention that countries, governments, companies, and other organizations give to this topic. And we can almost say that basically each dollar spent here needs to show, at least in a kind of a way, a positive effect to become greener. So said that, I'm very, very happy that we had this wonderful lineup today of very valuable and market-driving gurus, specialists, and thought leaders. So thanks to everybody, also to those who joined today to listen to this wild field. We have more to say, and we are upcoming with more topics that feed into the open source space. We will of course also talk about health and COVID-19. We will talk about Industry 4.0. We will just talk next week, just in a week from now, about smart tourism and have a FIWARE day there as well. So just check our program. This slide here shows you all the links that you need to get more information, either for the next upcoming domain days with FIWARE or just anything you want to know about FIWARE itself and other events or stories, marketing material, or whatever you might be interested in. I want to give a special thank also to Mike as our wonderful, awesome moderator today. It's always great to work with you, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we're also very proud and say thank you to our media partners, special media premium partner with Business Reporter, and our further really also awesome media partners like Compass List, EU Observer, Future Distributed, and Zoom. So thanks a lot. And Mike, I think I give you the last word.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Just remember that we are, if we don't do it, if we don't make the world a better place, no one will. This is not a responsibility we can hand to anyone else. It's our responsibility. So let's do a good job. Take care, be well, stay safe, and be healthy, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.